A terrifying creature is snatching people, and the police couldn't care less. On a rainy evening, a young woman named Tess Marshall arrives in Detroit. She has a job interview the next morning and decided to come early, planning to spend the night at a rental home on Barbary Street. Tess had booked the place through an online listing platform, received a confirmation, and was sent detailed instructions on how to get inside. Ignoring persistent calls from her ex-boyfriend, she rereads the message containing the code for the small lockbox by the front door, where the keys are supposed to be stored. Carrying her bags, Tess locks her car and hurries toward the house to escape the rain. She attempts to enter the code, but the lockbox won't open. Meanwhile, her ex, Marcus, continues to bombard her with calls, trying to reconcile. Frustrated, Tess focuses on the instructions again and realizes she had entered the code incorrectly, mixing up the digits. She tries the correct combination, but to her shock, the lockbox is empty. Panic sets in as Tess tries calling customer support to resolve the issue, but no one answers. The house is situated in a semi-abandoned neighborhood with no signs of life, which makes her uneasy. Realizing it's not safe to linger outside alone, she returns to her car to wait. As she's about to leave, she notices a light turn on in one of the rooms, indicating someone is inside. Curious and confused, Tess approaches the house again, peeks through the windows, and spots a stranger. Determined to figure out what's going on, she rings the doorbell insistently. A man answers, and the two of them find themselves in an awkward situation. It turns out that both Tess and the man, Keith, booked the house for the same night through different online platforms. Keith initially assumes Tess made a mistake, but she shows him her confirmation, proving her reservation is legitimate. Feeling bad that she's stuck in the rain, Keith invites Tess inside to sort things out with customer support. Tess hesitates, distrustful of a stranger, and knows that if he turns out to be dangerous, no one will come to her aid. Despite her apprehension, she decides to accept his offer and steps inside. The house appears clean and orderly, not at all like the lair of a criminal, but Tess struggles to trust men. She asks to use the bathroom to collect herself and requests Keith to show her his booking confirmation as well, to ensure they're being honest with each other. In the bathroom, Tess notices Keith's toiletries, cosmetics, cologne, and a toothbrush. Nothing about his belongings suggests he poses a threat, and she feels slightly reassured. However, upon returning to the living room, she finds that Keith has disappeared. Moments later, he suddenly reappears behind her, startling her and reigniting her unease. Keith shows Tess his confirmation, proving that he also booked the house for the same date. Understanding the awkwardness of the situation, Tess considers leaving to find a hotel instead. Keith, however, points out the dangers of the neighborhood and suggests she stay in the house to search for a solution, where at least there are locks and some semblance of security. Tess reluctantly agrees with Keith's reasoning and decides to stay while trying to find a nearby hotel. She calls around, but every room is fully booked. Keith remembers that a medical conference is happening in Detroit, bringing a flood of doctors into the city, making it nearly impossible to secure accommodations. Despite the awkwardness of the situation, Keith does his best to act like a gentleman. He offers her a drink and prepares tea, but Tess, wary that he might spike it, declines to drink with him. Unsure of what else to do, Tess realizes she has no place to stay for the night. Keith suggests the most practical solution. They can both remain in the rental. He offers her the bedroom, insisting he'll sleep on the couch, giving up the only bed. Tess reluctantly agrees but requests that the sheets be washed, as she's a cleanliness fanatic and refuses to sleep on used linens. While the bedding is in the washing machine, Keith helps Tess bring her belongings inside and settles her into the bedroom. While unpacking, Tess notices Keith has left his wallet out and decides to check his ID. She finds a few credit cards and snaps a photo of his driver's license, just in case she needs to go to the police later. Feeling slightly more secure, she takes a bath and changes into something comfortable to relax before her big interview. Keith informs her that the sheets are still drying and it'll take at least an hour. To pass the time, he suggests they open a bottle of wine and get to know each other better. Sensing her distrust, Keith makes a point not to open the wine until she's present. While Tess appreciates the gesture, she remains guarded, though she lets him have a small glass. Keith tries to break the tension by initiating casual conversation. Tess shares that she's in town for an interview with a filmmaker named Catherine. She's hoping to land a position as a researcher for documentaries, which impresses Keith. He's familiar with Catherine's work and encourages Tess, confident she'll do great. When Tess mentions that the upcoming project focuses on Detroit's struggling musicians, Keith is pleasantly surprised. As it turns out, he's part of a relatively well-known band that started in another part of the city. He rented the house while searching for a new space for his group and is considering it as a potential headquarters. Their shared conversation eases the tension between them, and Tess begins to trust Keith a little more. Later, when the bedding is ready, Keith helps her make the bed, adding his own quirky flair that makes Tess laugh. The moment helps them bond, and there's a spark of mutual affection. However, both recognize that they barely know each other and keep things strictly platonic for now. Keith wishes Tess a good night and heads to the couch in the living room. Still caught in the warmth of their earlier interaction, Tess forgets to lock her bedroom door. Later that night, she is jolted awake by the sound of the door creaking open. Alarmed, she suspects Keith and heads to the living room, only to find him tossing and turning on the couch, seemingly trapped in a nightmare. As Tess observes him, she doesn't notice the basement door behind her quietly closing, hinting that they might not be alone in the house. Shaken, Tess wakes Keith to confront him about the incident, but he groggily insists he didn't see or hear anything. Losing the trust she had begun to build, Tess retreats to her room and locks the door. The next morning, Keith leaves early, leaving a note asking Tess to place the keys back in the lockbox so he can get in if he returns first. Tess heads to her interview, which turns out to be a success. Catherine, her potential employer, congratulates her but expresses concern when Tess mentions staying in such a rundown neighborhood, urging her to find safer accommodations. On her drive back, Tess admits to herself that the area is unsettling, even frightening, but for now, it's the most practical option, and besides, she started to like Keith. Parking near the house, she notices a homeless man following her. Panicked, Tess rushes inside and calls the police, but her request for assistance is dismissed due to a lack of available patrol units. Later, Tess realizes she's out of toilet paper. Searching the house, she discovers a stash in the basement and heads down to retrieve it. As she enters, the door slams shut behind her, trapping her inside. Worse, she had forgotten to return the keys to the lockbox, and her phone is upstairs, leaving her with no way to escape. Desperate, Tess searches the basement and spots a rope sticking out of the wall. Pulling it reveals a hidden door leading to a dark, ominous corridor. Fear grips her, but curiosity wins out. Using mirrors to reflect light into the darkness, Tess cautiously explores the corridor. What she finds terrifies her: a dingy room with a grimy mattress, a bucket for waste, a bloody handprint on the wall, and an old video camera ominously aimed at the bed. Terrified, Tess bolts back to the main basement area, only to hear Keith returning home. Through a small window, she hands him the keys, allowing him to unlock the basement door and free her. Shaking, Tess explains what she saw and urges Keith to leave the house immediately. Skeptical, Keith dismisses her fears, insisting there must be a reasonable explanation. To reassure her, he decides to check the basement himself. He asks Tess to hold the door open to prevent it from closing again. Despite her protests, Keith heads down, promising to be back in a few minutes. Tess nervously waits, repeatedly calling for Keith to come back up. When he goes silent, her anxiety spikes. Against her better judgment, she ventures into the basement after him. To her horror, Keith is nowhere to be found. The corridor yawns before her, darker and more menacing than ever. Returning to the gloomy hallway, Tess looks around and notices another door leading to an underground tunnel. She's scared to go down, but hears Keith pleading for help. Struggling to overcome her fear, she descends and finds animal cages and other horrifying sights. Soon, she discovers an injured Keith. He's terrified, saying that they're not alone and that something bit him. She suggests they head to the exit, but he asks her to go the other way to hide from the monster lurking in the darkness. At that moment, a disfigured woman attacks them, smashing Keith's head in a brutal execution and capturing Tess. A couple of weeks later, the homeowner, actor AJ, starts facing serious problems. An actress he had a brief affair with has accused him of assault. The studio believes her story, and as a result, AJ is pulled from filming his series. The media soon catches wind of the conflict, and it spirals into a scandal, tarnishing the actor's reputation. He is sure he hasn't committed any crime, so he plans to sue, not only to defend himself but also to hold the actress accountable for defamation. To afford this, he needs a large sum of money, but his bank account is nearly empty, so the only solution is to sell some property. AJ decides to sell his house in Detroit and heads there to inspect it. His friends think it's a foolish move, as it indirectly confirms his guilt, almost like he's trying to flee from justice. AJ reminds them he's not a criminal and simply has the right to sell his property. He arrives at the house and notices it's filled with someone else's belongings. He calls his manager to find out who is renting the place, and learns that the last tenants were Keith and Tess, who were supposed to have moved out weeks ago. The housekeeper won't come until the next guests arrive, so no one has cleaned up, which frustrates AJ. Later, AJ goes to a nearby bar to drink and try to forget his troubles. When he returns home, he again notices the forgotten items, clothes, books, and even a laptop. Everything feels suspicious, as no one would leave all this behind when moving out. The next morning, AJ remembers that the basement door was open when he arrived. He suspects that some squatters have moved into his house and are living in the basement. Threatening them with an imaginary weapon, he orders them to come out, but nothing happens. At the same time, he hears strange noises from the basement, making him believe someone is down there. Armed with a knife and a flashlight, AJ heads down, where he discovers a mirror in an unnatural position. It points to a secret door, and a rope sticking out of the wall opens it. In the dark hallway, AJ finds a room with a camera and blood-stained walls. Any normal person would be scared, but AJ decides it's good luck, as extra secret rooms could raise the value of his house. Hoping to increase the price, he measures the total area of all the rooms and returns to the basement with a tape measure. By chance, he discovers a staircase leading to the underground tunnel, which excites him even more. The animal cage and creepy sounds don't frighten him, as every extra square foot brings him closer to paying for his lawyer's fees and fully rehabilitating his tarnished reputation. Here, AJ also finds a room with a television where young mothers are being taught breastfeeding. Realizing he's not alone and hearing more terrifying noises, AJ tries to escape, but the monster catches him and throws him into a pit where Tess is waiting. 40 years before these events, in the 1980s, the house belonged to a quiet and reclusive man named Frank. The area was beautiful and prosperous, as Detroit was the automotive capital of the United States. One day, Frank went to the store to buy things for his future child. On his way home, he noticed a beautiful woman and decided to pretend to be a plumber. He broke into her house under a false pretense, opened the bathroom window, and planned to sneak in at night. Once home, he went to the basement, where his captives were kept. For many years, he held them captive and assaulted them, but no one suspected a thing. In the present day, Tess is treating AJ's wound and explains that the monster chasing them is a woman who believes she is the mother. AJ hasn't told anyone where he is, so it's unlikely anyone will come to help. Tess urges him not to upset the mother and to play along, pretending to be her child. Moments later, the monster appears and offers AJ milk from a bottle. Tess obediently follows the mother's demands, which has helped her survive here all this time. The mother offers AJ the milk, but he refuses, finding it disgusting. Tess pleads with him to reconsider, but he remains firm in his refusal. Enraged, the mother opens the pit and drags him into the room with the television, where she forcibly feeds him breast milk. Tess sees an opportunity to escape the pit. Carefully sneaking past the monster's lair, she accidentally knocks over a measuring tape, revealing her escape attempt. Realizing she has only seconds, Tess makes a run for it. The basement door is shut again, so she smashes a small window and tries to crawl out. At the last moment, a homeless man named Andre, who had been following her, helps her. The mother gives chase but can't catch her, remaining inside the house. Andre warns Tess that she'll be safe only until dark, after which the monster will hunt her down. The only place to hide is by the water tower, where Andre lives. Tess refuses, believing she must do everything she can to help AJ. While the mother is chasing Tess, AJ seizes the opportunity to escape. He can't find the exit from the tunnel, but discovers a secret door leading to a room the monster is afraid to approach. Inside, AJ finds an elderly man, Frank, who loves to watch television. AJ helps him drink water and moves a nightstand, unaware that a revolver is hidden inside. AJ decides to check the videotapes and is horrified by what he sees. Frank has been a maniac for all these years, kidnapping women. He would take them by force and film the process in a room with a mattress and bloodstains on the wall. Frank realizes that the police will be coming soon, so he pulls out the revolver and takes his own life. AJ grabs the gun and runs from the room, hoping to find his way out of the maze. Meanwhile, Tess reaches the nearest gas station to call the police. When the patrol arrives, she tries to tell them what happened. The officers treat her like a troubled citizen with no money or identification. Her appearance is disheveled, and the officers assume Tess is on drugs, thinking her story is the result of hallucinations. Tess convinces them to go to the house with the monster kidnapping people, but once again, the police refuse to take action. They warn Tess that they will arrest her if she calls again and leave for a more urgent call. At night, Tess breaks a window and sneaks into the house to grab the car keys. She plans to leave, but just as she's about to escape, the mother kicks down the door and rushes outside to catch her. Tess hits the monster with the car and crashes into the house, hoping she has managed to get rid of the mother. Tess heads to the basement to find AJ, but the terrified actor accidentally shoots her. The pair manages to get outside, but Tess realizes the mother has disappeared, meaning she's still alive. AJ and Tess head toward the water tower, where they meet the homeless man, Andre, who's willing to share his shelter with them. He tells them that Frank was a madman who not only abducted women but also newborn children, which led to the mutations and the birth of the mother. Andre believes the shelter is safe, but it's not. The mother finds them and brutally tears Andre apart. The couple escapes and climbs to the top of the tower, but AJ drops the revolver. Unable to think of any better way to defend themselves, he pushes Tess off the tower, forcing the mother to jump after her, as the monster considers Tess her child. When AJ reaches the bottom, he sees that the mother saved Tess, sacrificing herself in the process. Tess is still alive. As AJ tries to apologize, the mother recovers and gouges out his eyes before mercilessly killing him. The mother asks Tess to return home with her, but Tess takes the revolver and, with one shot, ends the monster's life. Wounded, exhausted, and limping, but victorious in her struggle for survival, Tess walks away. Why does the protagonist keep exploring the house despite clear signs of danger? What motivations or flaws in her reasoning might explain this behavior? How justified are her actions at each stage, based on the information she has? Is it a matter of recklessness, courage, or a desire to hold on to her humanity? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next videos.